Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Hey, so first things first, my girlfriend recommended that I share this story because she thought everyone might enjoy it. So I decided to post it here under a throwaway account. Mostly because my previous posts on my main account would make my real-life identity apparent, and I don't want an artificial boost to my karma. Growing up, I thought I had a good relationship with my parents, mom and dad/stepdad, and my three younger siblings, younger brother 1, younger sister, and younger brother 2. However, around 5th grade, my relationship with them began to change. I had always excelled at school, so my parents sent me to a private school with excellent test scores and good college placements for students. My last year there, I was excited to go on a private middle school that all my friends and I had been accepted into. Unfortunately, at that time, my parents sat me down and explained that they did not have the money to pay for my tuition and had to withdraw younger brother 1 and younger sister's applications to the elementary school I had attended for the same reason. So I will be enrolled in a local public middle school for the following year. Towards the end of the 5th grade, we were doing a science class and my teacher started our introduction to genetics unit. That lesson has stayed with me since because my appearance is so different from my parents. As of now, I'm in my 20s and share literally no features with my mom. So I began asking my teacher some very difficult questions about genetics in class. After answering which traits tend to be dominant, she realized where I was going and immediately shut me down. Over that summer, I read pretty much every book I could on the subject before I did something foolish. I went to my dad and asked him if I was adopted. This conversation didn't end well. I don't remember everything that was said, but it escalated very quickly and ended with him hitting me. My dad hit me so hard that he actually broke my right cheekbone. My mom rushed me to the hospital and I was coached to say that I was accidentally hit by a doorknob. I eventually had to repeat the same thing to Child Protective Services. After a week back from the hospital, my mom and dad revealed to me that he was actually my stepdad. When they were in college, my mom was dating a guy who she said was a real jerk. When they found out she was pregnant, he left her. But my stepdad stepped up and did everything he could, putting his name on my birth certificate. My mom explaining that when I confronted my stepdad, it really hurt him, and he lashed out in anger. It was wrong, and they both asked for forgiveness. I unfortunately agreed. We seemed to go back to being a somewhat normal family again, but I began to notice things I hadn't before. Whenever my younger siblings needed something, my mom and stepdad would drop everything to help them. Meanwhile, I was told to figure it out myself. For birthdays, I would get to next to no attention, usually just a hug from my mom. I didn't even get a cake after I turned 6. Meanwhile, my siblings would get a party with all the works. My stepdad would come back from work and wanted nothing to do with me. Even as a little kid, I was a massive nerd who wanted to go to museums and do all those nerdy kid things and had zero interest in sports. My brothers were the exact opposite, and he spent much of his free time playing or watching sports with them. If my brothers wanted to go to see a game or something, my stepdad would move heaven and earth to bring them and usually drag me along. If I wanted to see the new Devonian fossil exhibit at the local museum, there was no way I could go because he was busy. Once he even told me, "Sorry, but that basketball game took up your entire entertainment budget this month." By the way, that was the same game where, when he saw that I brought my copy of Cosmos, he threw it out because I shouldn't have brought a book to a family event. There were several more things my parents did that showed their favoritism when I was younger. But this is already going to be a long post. What I do want to point out is that this wasn't new behavior that developed after the truth came out. It had been ongoing over the years, and I just chalked it up to me being the eldest sibling. Middle school was absolutely terrible. I was and still am an introvert who would usually rather be by myself reading than talking to people. In my old school, I was still the odd one out, but I didn't get singled out for it and had friends. At the public school, I was quickly singled out and bullied. This caused my mental health to severely decline, and my parents refused to intervene because it would toughen you up. I was bullied, but I fought back, and then they became my friends. That's just how guys become friends. Of course, I'm sure anyone here can assume correctly that the faculty was about as helpful. I did try to fight back once, and all it did was get 3 different kids to gang up on me, and I was suspended for 3 days. The only friend I was able to make was an older kid called Devin. Devin was 3 years older than me, but he actually took sympathy on me and decided to protect me from my bullies. Over the next 3 years, my situation at home quickly began to decline. My younger siblings had picked up on my parents' apathy and my decreased confidence and began to harass me. If they wanted something I had, they took it. They would call me names and play pranks on me. When I told my parents, they told me I needed to lighten up, and needless to say, this did not help my situation. My parents also became extremely harsh on me, and I did get beaten from time to time. Towards the end of my first year of middle school, I came home from the library and I saw a letter from the middle school I wanted to go to. I immediately opened it, and it was a letter declining the application for younger brother 1 and younger sister. I did not see anything for me, so I went to my parents. They punished me for opening their mail. But when I pushed it, they told me that younger brother 1 and younger sister did more to deserve going to that middle school. Mind you, at this time and before, I had near perfect grades. When I argued that if they could afford to send younger brother 1 and younger sister, then I should have been able to go. I was beaten for talking back and opening my parents' mail. I will be honest, during this time I did try self-harm, and whenever I did, my situation would briefly improve. I became the center of my parents' world. Teachers would intervene to stop the bullying, and even some of the kids at school would begin to be friendly to me. But after a week, things would quickly slide back. The only person who was actually there for me in my life was Devin. One day, during the early part of 8th grade, I broke down and told Devin about my biological father. I had been having thoughts about why he abandoned me when he found out. How it was partially his fault that my life was the way it was. There was a lot else I said, but that was a key part. During my venting session, I revealed that my mom had let my dad's first and last name slip recently, and I knew his name. So Devin offered to help me research my dad. That day, Devin and I went to his house and began to essentially cyber-stalk him. My biological dad still is, a college professor at a research university about 200-ish miles from where we lived. We also found that he was married, and I learned that I had another younger sister and my stepmom was pregnant. That night, Devin and I hatched a plan, which we would carry out the following day. I came to school, and as soon as I stepped off the bus, I went to the high school student parking lot and got into Devin's car, and we left. We arrived at the university around noon. After parking, Devin immediately went to the student center and asked which office my dad worked at and got directions. We went there and he was gone on lunch, but when he came back about an hour later, he saw us sitting outside his office and asked who we were. I remember asking for his name and then asking if he knew my mom. When he confirmed both, I told him who I was and that I believed I was his son. I just wanted to say, as cheesy as it sounds to me looking back, it was Devin who coached me on that. He probably just watched the bad Hallmark drama or something like that. I remember that he immediately hugged me warmly and started saying, "Oh my God," over and over. He immediately brought us into his office to talk and cancelled his classes for the day. After that, Devin left and my dad took me home and introduced me to his family. My stepmom was surprised. She knew my dad had a son, but a 13-year-old popping out of nowhere is kind of a surprise. Then they explained what happened. According to my dad, he was dating my mom during their senior year of college when she told him she was pregnant. He and my mom were having problems in their relationship, and he suspected she was cheating on him. He was planning on breaking up with her when she told him, and he honestly suspected that it was an attempt to stay together. So he told her that he would be willing to do a paternity test and co-parent, but that he refused to be in a relationship. It turns out that my mom was cheating on him with my stepdad, and when he had a much more positive response, she got contact with my dad. When my dad married my stepmom, he told her that he might have had a child, and they decided to look my mom up on Facebook and saw a few pictures of me. Remember how I have no significant features with my mom or stepdad? It turns out I look almost identical to my dad, so he knew immediately. He had reached out to my mom via Facebook, but she immediately blocked him. He had considered getting a lawyer, but figured it would be nearly impossible to get custody or even visitation rights without a paternity test, which my mom and stepdad could have blocked. I told him everything that my mom and stepdad had put me through, even more than what had been said above. When I finished, I was crying, and my stepmom was consoling me, and after it was all out, my dad wordlessly stood up, went into the next room and called a lawyer, and then called the police. The police, social services, and child protective services all showed up and took me into custody. To summarize everything, I was taken out of my mom's and stepdad's custody and became a temporary ward of the state. A paternity test was taken and it confirmed everything that my dad told me. Then I was placed into my dad and stepmom's care, and I was given a restraining order until I reached the age of 18. I won't pretend that everything was perfect. Looking back on it, I did cause some strain on my dad's marriage because he immediately favored me over my half-siblings. My dad and stepmom did recover and they placed sensible boundaries. I was enrolled in a much better school where I was able to make real friends. I never forgot Devin. We stayed in contact, but due to the distance, our contact isn't as consistent as it used to be. We still talk regularly though. Devin is doing well. After high school, he became an underwater welder for an oil company, which apparently pays really well. We have met for drinks and to catch up. I asked him why he protected me and he said he wasn't sure, but for whatever reason, when he saw me getting bullied, it just caused something to snap. He also said that he kinda saw me as someone who needed the big brother figure in his life and that it was the right thing to do. After high school, I went on to college and was fairly popular as my confidence had been completely rebuilt. I majored in biology and minored in geology. I'm currently a PhD student working in paleontology. I love it. I get to go on university-sponsored digs. Normally, they are in the United States, but last year I got to South Africa and Namibia. My mom and stepdad reached out to me a few months ago to try and get me to help tutor younger brother 2 and younger sister. Younger sister had dropped out of college a few years ago because it was too difficult for her, although she wanted to go back and finish her program. And younger brother 2 wants to get into a good college next year but doesn't have the grades, but wants help studying for the standardized tests. During that conversation, I noticed my heart was beating out of control and that I was having difficulty breathing. I'm certain it was a panic attack, but I had never had anything like that, so I just hung up on my mom and sat on the couch. The following day, I began to receive a couple of texts from my mom's kids asking for help and blocked all their numbers. Afterward, I didn't hear from them until I received a barrage of emails from them on my university email. Essentially, they were apologizing for how they treated me and wanted to fix things so we could be a family. Originally, I had decided that I wanted to send an email back telling them that I wanted no further contact and that even hearing from them was causing a traumatic response over a decade later, and that I feel the only reason they are reaching out is that they want a free tutor. I never sent it. Instead, I decided simply to block them. In April, I went on a dig in Texas and received a call from the police telling me they had been called to my apartment because they had been told that someone had broken in. It was younger brother 1 trying to get in contact with me. I told the police he was not supposed to be there and that I would like trespassing charges pressed. As it was a first offense, he was able to plea bargain it down to 100 hours of community service. I got back home at the end of May and I haven't heard from them yet. I think they got the idea and decided to stop contacting me. Regardless, I have a strong relationship with my dad. We have spent a long time building that relationship and making up for lost time. I have a good relationship with my younger half-siblings from my dad and stepmom. I play with them and spend a lot of time with them. But there is a fairly big age gap between us. My stepmom and I are on good terms. I'm not sure how to describe our relationship, but I would say that while she did not completely replace the role of a mom in my life, she did become a motherly figure. I have no idea if that makes sense, but it's the best way I can phrase it. I am not entirely sure how to end this. There might be something like a message here, but probably not. I really did just feel that I should share my story. Although I have been sitting here and after initially writing this, when I was recalling the mistreatment I suffered and started to proofread it, I started to feel extremely anxious. I think that I may have some suppressed trauma and will be looking to get therapy. My name's Alex, and I'm a lawyer in a quiet town. Well, it used to be quiet until I started digging into the shady dealings of our Homeowners Association president, Karen. It starts when a few neighbors came to me with complaints about unusually high fees and missing funds. At first, I thought it was just typical neighborhood drama, but as I started looking into it, I realized there was something much bigger going on. I spent weeks combing through financial records, meeting minutes, and bank statements. The more I dug, the worse it got. Karen had been embezzling money from the association for years. She'd also been stealing from community projects, pocketing money meant for park renovations and road repairs. After gathering enough evidence, I decided to confront Karen directly. I remember that day clearly. I walked into her office, a stack of documents under my arm, feeling nervous but determined. Karen, we need to talk. Alex, what a surprise. What can I do for you? I've been looking into the association's finances, and I've found some discrepancies. She says, her smile faltering. Discrepancies? What do you mean? I laid out the documents on her desk, pointing out the irregularities and the proof of her theft and corruption. Her face went from confusion to anger to fear in a matter of seconds. These are lies. You're making this up. It's all here, Karen. Bank statements, doctored meeting minutes, fake invoices. You've been stealing from us for years. She stands up now. You have no idea what you're talking about. I suggest you leave now before I call security. I'm not going anywhere. This needs to stop, Karen. I'm giving you a chance to come clean before I take this to the authorities. You have until Thursday to come clean. Karen leaning over the desk. You're making a big mistake, Alex. You have no idea who you're messing with. I left her office that day feeling uneasy. I knew Karen wouldn't go down without a fight, but I had no idea how far she was willing to go. For the next few days, everything seemed normal. I continued my regular work at the law firm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see Karen or one of her cronies following me. It was a Wednesday night when everything went to hell. I was driving home from a late night at the office, the roads mostly empty. As I approached the dark stretch of road near the edge of town, I noticed a car parked on a shoulder. I slowed down, debating whether I should stop to help. That moment of hesitation probably saved my life. As I got closer, I saw movement in the shadows. Suddenly, the night exploded with a sound of gunfire. Bullets peppered my car, shattering windows and tearing through metal. Acting on pure instinct, I slammed on the gas pedal. My car lurched forward, tires screeching as I swerved to avoid the gunfire. I felt a sharp pain in my arm and something warm trickling down the side of my face, but I didn't dare stop. I don't remember much of the drive after that. It's all a blur of adrenaline and fear. Somehow I made it to the police station, my car riddled with bullet holes and my arm bleeding badly. The next few hours were chaos. Cops swarmed the streets hunting for the attackers, and I was taken to the hospital where they patched up my arm and treated the graze on my head. It turns out I was luckier than I thought. The bullet had just barely missed my skull. By morning, they had caught the hitmen, two guys with long criminal records and ties to organized crime. It didn't take long for them to start talking, and what they said shocked everyone. The detective sitting across from me in the hospital room, Mr. Collins, we've got some information about your attack. It seems it was ordered by Karen. Me, stunned. Karen? The HOA president? The same. Apparently, she hired these guys to take care of you. I can't believe she'd go this far. I knew she was corrupt, but attempted murder? People do desperate things when they are cornered. We're bringing her in for questioning now. Karen, the seemingly perfect homeowners association president, arrested for embezzlement, corruption, and attempted murder. The trial that followed was a media circus. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, neighbors gossiped endlessly, and I found myself at the center of it all. I testified about my investigation, the confrontation in Karen's office, and the terrifying night of the attack. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, witness testimonies, and the hitman's confessions all pointed to Karen's guilt. I'll never forget the look on Karen's face when the verdict was read. She seemed to age years in those few moments, her carefully maintained facade crumbling away. The judge says, "Karen, this court finds you guilty on all charges. You are hereby sentenced to 25 years in state prison." In the weeks that followed, I worked with the remaining homeowners association members to untangle the mess Karen had left behind. We set up new financial controls and elected new leadership. It wasn't easy. Some people were angry that they hadn't noticed what was happening right under their noses. Others were embarrassed they had been defending Karen for so long. But slowly, things started to improve. I still have nightmares sometimes about that night on the dark road. The sound of gunfire, the shattering glass, and the fear that gripped me as I fled for my life. But I'm still practicing law, still fighting for justice in my own small way. And every time I drive down that stretch of road where the attack happened, I remember how close I came to losing everything. It reminds me to be grateful, to be vigilant, and to never stop fighting for what's right. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.